Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering nobody on Earth can sleep anymore. Every single human loses the ability to fall asleep. At first, nobody thinks this is a problem. In fact, most people are incredibly excited. 8 extra hours suddenly appear in every day. Students believe they can learn twice as much. Gamers celebrate what feels like a dream come true. Factories begin operating 24 hours without stopping. The global economy starts growing faster than ever, but scientists are not celebrating with everyone else. Something strange is already happening inside the brain. People begin forgetting small details throughout the day. Concentration becomes slightly more difficult than before. Simple tasks suddenly require much more effort. Researchers suspect sleep might be more important than expected. 3 days pass without anyone sleeping. The excitement slowly begins turning into concern. Everyone feels exhausted, yet nobody can rest. Hospitals report a sharp increase in headaches, and this is only the beginning of the nightmare. While the rest of the world celebrated their new freedom, scientists quietly noticed something terrifying hidden deep inside the human brain. The brain was still consuming enormous amounts of energy, but without sleep, it had completely lost its natural recovery process. People began forgetting tiny everyday tasks, and most laughed it off, believing it was nothing more than simple exhaustion. Simple decisions suddenly required much more effort, and concentrating for even a few minutes became surprisingly difficult. Students struggled to remember lessons they had studied only hours before, something that had never happened on such a massive scale. Hospitals reported thousands of patients suffering from headaches, dizziness, and strange mental fatigue despite never sleeping again. Brain scans revealed unusual activity that researchers had never observed in healthy human beings before. The evidence became impossible to ignore. Something inside every human brain was slowly beginning to fail. The excitement that had united humanity only days earlier slowly transformed into fear, confusion, and growing uncertainty everywhere. And this was only the beginning, because the real nightmare would finally reveal itself during the next few days. By the end of the first week, people weren't just forgetting things anymore. They were suddenly freezing, unable to remember what they were doing. Small mistakes became surprisingly common, even among experienced professionals who had spent decades mastering their jobs. Air traffic controllers struggled to process information quickly enough, forcing airports around the world to delay hundreds of flights. Road accidents increased dramatically as drivers experienced dangerous lapses in attention lasting only a few terrifying seconds. Even highly trained surgeons began making unusual mistakes, raising serious concerns about the safety of emergency medical procedures. Researchers finally discovered that harmful waste products were building up inside every human brain without the cleansing effects of sleep. Normally, sleep activates a remarkable cleaning system that removes these dangerous substances before they can damage delicate brain cells. Then something even more disturbing happened. Perfectly healthy people started seeing shadows that simply weren't there. Within hours, reports of hallucinations spread across entire cities, making it impossible to separate reality from imagination. Humanity finally realized this wasn't just an unusual biological event. It was the beginning of a global neurological catastrophe unlike anything in history. As hallucinations spread across the globe, panic began replacing logic. Nobody could trust their own senses anymore. Financial markets became increasingly unstable as exhausted investors made irrational decisions based on fear and confusion. Factories that once celebrated nonstop productivity now struggled with constant errors, equipment failures, and dangerous accidents. Critical infrastructure required perfect concentration, but concentration had become one of humanity's rarest resources. The first major blackouts appeared when exhausted workers failed to maintain complex electrical systems properly. Food deliveries slowed dramatically as transportation networks struggled under mounting human mistakes and system failures. Global supply chains began breaking apart, creating shortages that affected millions of people almost overnight. Governments declared international emergencies, but no policy could solve a biological problem affecting every human alive. Around the world, scientists desperately searched for a cure before civilization reached a point of no return. But while humanity searched for answers, the damage inside the brain continued growing worse with every passing hour. By the second week, thousands of perfectly healthy people claimed they could hear voices whispering from empty rooms. The hallucinations became stronger every day, making it almost impossible for victims to separate reality from imagination. Some people even failed to recognize close family members because their exhausted brains processed familiar faces incorrectly. Emergency services received thousands of calls reporting monsters, intruders, and disasters that simply didn't exist. Hospitals quickly became overwhelmed because nobody understood whether the illness was psychological or something much worse. Researchers discovered that toxic proteins were accumulating faster than the brain could remove them without healthy sleep. Even worse, the brain had stopped organizing memories, causing new experiences to disappear almost as quickly as they happened. People started repeating conversations, forgetting answers only minutes after hearing them, creating endless cycles of confusion. Every nation reported the exact same symptoms, proving this was no local disaster but a crisis affecting the entire human species. Humanity finally understood the terrifying truth. Sleep was never wasting time. It was silently keeping every human brain alive. After weeks of nonstop research, scientists finally discovered that sleep was never simply about resting the body, it was protecting the brain itself. Every single night, an invisible cleaning system normally washes harmful waste away while we peacefully sleep without ever noticing. Without sleep, those dangerous waste particles continued accumulating hour after hour, slowly poisoning billions of healthy brain cells. Brain scans revealed that people who never slept now showed patterns surprisingly similar to severe neurological disorders. Long-term memories began fading, causing many people to forget birthdays, childhood moments, and even the faces they loved most. Schools became almost impossible to operate because students could no longer absorb or retain new information effectively. Conversations became endless loops as people forgot what had just been said. Only seconds before, researchers realized they weren't fighting ordinary fatigue anymore. Humanity was experiencing a slow neurological collapse. Every country reported identical symptoms, proving that no nation, technology, or medical system could escape the crisis. Then scientists asked one terrifying question: if the brain cannot survive without sleep, how much time does humanity have left? No one knew exactly how long the human brain could survive without sleep, but every new day made the situation dramatically worse. Entire cities slowly became quieter as fewer people could safely work, drive, or even complete the simplest daily routines. Food shortages spread rapidly because transportation systems and supply chains depended on people whose minds were beginning to fail. Power stations became increasingly difficult to operate, causing rolling blackouts that left millions living in complete darkness. Researchers confirmed that sleep wasn't simply resting the brain, it was actively preserving memories, emotions, and intelligent decision-making. Every normal night, the brain repairs microscopic damage accumulated throughout the day. Without sleep, that damage never stops growing. Some people look directly at lifelong friends and family members, yet their exhausted brains could no longer recognize familiar faces. For the first time in history, humanity faced an enemy that couldn't be fought with weapons, money, or advanced technology. The greatest mystery was no longer why people couldn't sleep. The real mystery was how much irreversible damage had already been done. The one thing every human had ignored for their entire lives had quietly become the most important biological process on Earth. After only a few weeks, every nation faced the same terrifying reality. Humanity wasn't adapting. It was slowly falling apart. Researchers finally understood that sleep wasn't a passive state at all. It was one of the brain's most important survival mechanisms. While we sleep, the brain activates a remarkable cleaning system that removes toxic waste produced during every waking hour. Without that nightly cleaning process, harmful proteins continue building up until normal brain function slowly begins to collapse. Sleep also strengthens memories, organizes information, regulates emotions, and prepares the brain to learn something new tomorrow. What people once considered wasted time was actually one of evolution's greatest inventions for keeping humans alive. The greatest threat to civilization was never a monster, an asteroid, or a machine. It was losing something we barely appreciated. Every peaceful night you spend asleep, billions of cells are repairing themselves without asking for thanks or recognition. Perhaps the greatest superpower humans have never been flying or becoming invisible. Perhaps it has simply been the ability to sleep. So tonight, before you close your eyes, remember this. Sleep isn't stealing time from your life. It's giving you another chance to wake up tomorrow. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe for more fascinating questions about the human body and our incredible universe.